Welcome to the second episode of Nintendo Ninja News. I'm your host, Chris Tysis, and we still don't have jingle music, but we can be the podcast that doesn't have jingle music at the beginning of each one. So it's the second episode, and obviously I'm still flying this podcast solo. Um, just a little bit of news before we get into today's topic. We're still doing a little bit of introduction stuff and rearranging some of the things to help promote the podcast. We've moved from a Facebook page to a Facebook group because we want a bit more interaction and discussion. And whenever I do post at a Facebook page, no one actually sees anything. The reach is not there. People don't see the posts, and Facebook wants you to pay money in order for you to talk to your own fans and supporters, which sucks and shouldn't even happen. So, with that out of the way, today's topic I thought would be about how I became a Nintendo fan. And it's an interesting story that goes way back when I was in hospital. I would believe when I was 8 or 9 years old, possibly. I believe one of the times when yes, I would have been in grade one, and that would have been when I was 6 or 7. So over 25 years ago was when I started to show a bit of love for Nintendo, and I was in hospital with a twisted bowel, which basically means you're not eating right. And I was stuck with a drip, down the nose, and it was very unpleasant and very not fun to have. And there was a games room. There was like a video game room in the early '90s up in Queensland, and they had the NES. They had the old console, which was pretty old. Was probably about 10 years old, and the Super Nintendo had come out probably a year ago. So obviously the hospital couldn't afford really expensive consoles, and they had the game The Flintstones, and it was just a platformer game, and I played that for quite a while, and I was really amazed by the graphics and all that sort of thing, and that was the first time I really got interested in Nintendo, because I had an Atari 2600. That was my very first console, and I played hundreds of hours on that thing, probably a good 1,000 hours on that thing, over the years that I had it. So I had a bit of a good education when it came to different gaming consoles that I had over that time. And a few years later, it would be, mid to late 90s was when I was over a friend's place where I lived in Nambour. And this guy had, it probably would have been Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo. And that piqued my interest a lot higher, seeing different games on the newer console. And, my mother and I didn't have the money to buy expensive gaming consoles back then. And we still had the Atari, and, my brothers got me the Sega Master System too, which was very cool. Played Alex the Kid and all the other games on that too. And it was until 97, 98 was when I got my first Nintendo product, and that was the Game Boy Color with Pokemon Yellow, because everyone played that game. The Pokemon craze was up and around then. That was in '99. Actually, that was my first handheld. Sorry, this is backtracking the story here. And before that, I got the Super Nintendo, which by then was an old console. It was $99 for the console, and that was a bargain. Even I could afford. And then about 6 months later, I got the Nintendo 64 while it was still going around. It was released for 3 years. And on the Super Nintendo, I remembered getting Donkey Kong Country 2, which is still my favourite game of all time, I guess. And a few other games too. Harvest Moon was a classic game. And I got Mario Paint, which was a very cool game. And then I moved on to the Nintendo 64, and I got GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Banjo Kazooie, which is an absolute classic. And that was really when I started doing the whole, buying Nintendo games and that. And I think as the years went on, I I got the GameCube, and I wasn't much of a fan of it. I liked the console, how it looked, and the controller was fine to me. And then I bought the original Nintendo DS when it came out, and I bought a few games, and obviously the only games I really played on the DS was Pokemon. So I was much more of a Wii player back then when I got the Wii console, which was a lot of fun. Oddly enough, one of my favorite games on that was Grand Slam Tennis, and got a big workout from that game over the years. And obviously, I got Twilight Princess, which was great. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and Wii Sports was a great game to play with too. And I think it was obviously until I got the 3DS where I would say that's my favourite console. Obviously, meeting lots of friends and people because of that and the street passing features, I think that was really the thing that really got me really into Nintendo. And obviously, starting this podcast show and helping out my local Street Pass group and a couple others interstate too. And nowadays, I have the Wii U and the 3DS, and sort of half thinking about getting a couple older consoles. But I wouldn't really get too many classic games, just a couple here and there. Um, so I guess that's my story of how I became a Nintendo fan. A lot of years of sort of looking at the windows at Toy World and going, oh man, I wish I could get that console for quite a few years. But I was a big fan of Lego, so that kept me busy during the time. And nowadays I have two great consoles, and I'm very happy with them, and they keep me very busy. They keep me very busy. So that is all I've got to say about how I became a Nintendo fan. What about you? How did you become a Nintendo fan? It would be great to hear your comments at the Facebook group. Just look for Nintendo Ninjas or Nintendo Ninja News on Facebook, and you should be able to find us. We're slow, we don't have many members there, but we are building as time goes on. So that is it from me, and we shall have another discussion very soon. See you later on.